if everyone makes some room.
Hello, folks. This is your host, Tammy Tuckey, and you are now listening to the Tiara Talk Show. We bring you rare interviews with the makers of Disney magic. Whether they be singers, actors, Imagineers, animators, they have all made their mark on the Disney name. Be sure to check out the show notes, other episodes, contests, our social media pages from Facebook to Twitter, and more on our official website at www.thetiaratalkshow.com. All guest opinions are theirs and theirs alone and do not represent the opinions of the Tiara Talk Show or the host. The Tiara Talk Show is not associated with the Disney Company. Thank you for tuning into this week's episode. And from all of us here at the Tiara Talk Show, have a hoop-de-doo day.
So let's all make sure we give everyone somewhere to stand.
Let's all make sure we give everyone somewhere to stand.
I'm excited to welcome this week's Tiara Talk Show guest, actor Sean Marshall, to the show. Welcome, Sean.
Thank you.
It's great to have you on the show and to talk about Pete's Dragon. This is one of my favorite live-action Disney films, definitely up in the top 5, and it's getting a remake, which we'll talk about soon. But let's talk about the original 77 film. Over 37 years has passed since this movie came out. Have you seen it recently or introduced it to any young family members of your own?
Yeah, I do on occasion. As you said, the Blu-ray just came out a couple of years ago. I did the introduction to the Blu-ray. So on occasion I do. I keep copies around that I sign for people. So when I do that, especially if they're around, we'll watch it again. So yeah, I probably once a year at a minimum I watch it, but sometimes more than that.
Did your family ever take home videos of you, or is this like your gateway to your 12-year-old home video?
Yeah, we rarely ever took home videos because I was in the industry, so it was kind of like having home videos. I see myself on TV all the time between Pete's Dragon and the other movies and series I did. But yeah.
To get to the film's all-star cast, we have Shelley Winters, Jim Dale, Jeff Conway, Red Buttons, Jim Backus, and the late Mickey Rooney. I can only imagine how many jokes were told on set and off camera. You kind of talk a little bit about that in one of the scenes on the DVD. Can you reiterate some of the funny stories that you remember while being on set?
Wow, yeah, there were so many. And I actually go into great detail in that in the Blu-ray extras. I haven't really heard it. I mean, I did a lot on that. It was probably, oh my gosh, it may be like 10, 15 minutes long. But yeah, there were lots, especially between Mickey Rooney and Red Buttons. Because, those two were such kind of old vaudevillian type comedians, and, they had known each other for a long time. So there was a lot of comedic stuff going on between them. But, there were so many comedians in that film, and they really play off each other. So there was just so much stuff. I have so many. It was so long ago. It's kind of hard to remember. But I remember I think there was a scene in the movie where, and it may have been real short, but where Mickey and Red were walking to the cave when they were both supposed to be drunk. And they were going to show, I think Mickey was going to show Red, or Red was going to show Mickey where the dragon was living in the cave. And when they filmed the scene, it must have been 5 minutes long, the two of them playing off each other, being drunk, stumbling down the beach, which was hilarious. If they had left it in, the movie would have been much longer, but oh my gosh, that was hilarious. And then, of course, something no one ever saw was when we had our wrap party at the end of the movie. It was, of course, really, really long, and they had lots of comedians come in that weren't in the movie at all. Tim Conway and Carol Burnett and those kind of people that did lots of comedic stuff, which was really, really funny as well. But the guys on the set had done, and these were the special effects guys, had painted dragon footsteps in the parking lot of Disney Studios. They went to a parking a spot, and then they painted dragon footsteps leading up to the entrance to the studio, as if like the dragon Elliot had his own parking spot and then, walked up into the studio. And we all thought that was hilarious. We were sitting around in the parking lot looking at it the day that they had done it, all laughing. And at the time, Gary Morgan had pulled up he was driving this old, I think it was like a Dodge van, at the entrance gate. And again, this was 1976. As he pulled up, so this was way before cell phones, way before anyone had any kind of a handheld phone, or anyone had ever thought of it. And as he pulled up to the main gate, the gate guard was kind of sitting there, about to let him enter into the parking lot. And Gary pulled up an old phone, like the old ones with the cord, the old Bakelite phones that he just had in his van. And he went to go answer it like he had a phone in his van. And at the time, that was just beyond anyone's, perception or conception. And we all laughed so hysterically because, we literally fell on the ground because it was just beyond what anyone even thought was possible. But see, like today, that wouldn't even be, funny, or, no one would even think of that. But at the time, it was just hilarious. So, a lot of gags that, today I don't even think people would think of.
And, there's a couple things in this film I'd like to point out that maybe we don't see a lot nowadays in any type of film, like child abuse, alcoholism, and saying goodbye to a loved one forever. Many of these topics are covered, especially we were just talking about Gary Morgan. Gary Morgan played one of your abusive brothers. When you're going through these scenes, what exactly is the director kind of walking you through? Because again, you're 12 years old.
Sure. It's all right. It's all acting. In reality, we're all having a fantastic time. It was a great set. We all had just, the most fun you can possibly have. So, it's all acting. You have to get into the, just like any acting, you have to get into what's going on and everything. But, I was never scared. No one was ever really scared. You were just kind of playing the part. You were kind of aware of what was going on. It's funny now when I look back because, I only have really, really good memories of how fun everything was. But, it was about, a couple of months ago, maybe 3 months ago, I think, when people were talking about the new version of Pete's Dragon, and that it was going to be a darker version, and someone contacted me and said, I don't understand how it could be a darker version because Pete's Dragon was probably the darkest movie Disney ever made. And I was like, it was? I didn't think it was that dark. It just never dawned on me because, we had, it was just so fun, and there were just so many. It was a huge, huge set, and it took 6 months to make, because, we had to, learn all the dancing, and we had to plan, because even though it was live action, it was partially animated. So there was a lot of planning that went in. Most people film now with I guess it's blue screens or green screens, but we used a new technique that was a yellow screen. Right, that used multiple cameras to fill in the animated dragon, which I think was only done in that film. I think these are real classic themes. These are about sailors. This was on the Maine coast, obviously, and these were lighthouse keepers. These were fishermen. Obviously, Nora's husband was a sailor who was lost at sea. These are all real classic kind of, tales that you can read in some of the most classic books of all time. Nora being a lighthouse keeper and waiting on the lighthouse for her husband that was lost at sea. These are real classic themes. And then sailors, dealing with alcoholism. This is real kind of classic literary stuff.
It was really interesting to see the announcement of Pete's Dragon as a remake. They've released trailers and images of the dragon. When you heard about the initial announcement of a remake of Pete's Dragon, what were your thoughts?
I'm happy to see it. I like remakes. So I'm always happy to see it. I haven't seen the trailer. I've seen a couple of photos. I'm glad that they've... a lot of times when they do remakes, it's an exact remake. And I don't really like those. I like it when they kind of reinterpret it. So I'm happy about that. I'm happy to see that they're reinterpreting it. And I'm happy to see how they reinterpret it. It sounds like it's going to be something new and unusual. So I'm happy to see that as well. Yeah, so I'm thrilled to see what they're going to do with it.
Were you ever contacted to film a cameo in the film?
No, but I did. I mean, I talked to the, via Twitter and Facebook and that kind of stuff. I've just kind of spoken briefly to the director and the producer and that kind of stuff. Exchanging pleasantries and that kind of, encouraging kind of stuff.
And I love that they still have him at the Disney theme parks. They recently just put back the Main Street Electrical Parade, and the last float, believe it or not, is Elliot the Dragon with Pete on top of him. And Pete is wearing his nice white outfit, the one that he goes to school in too. It's really cool. I love seeing that float, and I always wave. I'm like, Pete.
And when we did the tour afterwards, that's when they first came out with it. And I mean, I rode that Elliot down Fifth Avenue in New York. I rode it in the halftime shows at football games and all over when we did those tours. So, and then I rode it a lot at Disneyland in the Main Street Parade when it first started. So yeah, I rode that Elliot many, many, many times. And
as you mentioned, you kind of moved away from the entertainment industry. Can you tell our audiences what you're up to right now?
Now I'm really kind of not. I'm just kind of retired. I got accepted into a really good college prep, which was when I quit the business, which was a college prep being high school. And that's when I quit. And then I went to a federal military academy, and, I went into the Navy and the Merchant Marine. And then, I worked, after that, I worked for a couple of Fortune 100 companies, and then I retired. So, I'm pretty much just hanging around these days.
And before we end our interview, of course, I'd like to add my Fab 3 Disney-themed questions, which I always ask my guests. So we'll start with the Donald one, which is, as a child, what Disney film was one of your favorites to see in the movie theater?
Wow, that's a really good question. I mean, I liked all the Disney films, but what would have been my favorite? I would say probably Sleeping Beauty.
And our goofy question, what Disney character do you think would be your best friend if you met them in person? And we'll exclude Elliot because he's already your best friend.
Right. See, you got me, because that's what I was going to say, obviously. What Disney character would be my best friend? Boy, you ask tough questions. Well, if it's not Elliot, then it'd have to be Mickey Mouse.
Our Mickey question. If I asked you to name any Disney song at this very moment, what immediately comes to mind?
Brazzle Dazzle Day.
And I think we should just play that out as we end our interview, because actually that's that's pretty much my favorite song in the movie too. I love Brazzle Dazzle Day, and it was a pleasure to talk with you, Sean, about Pete's Dragon, because, not a lot of people get to talk to Pete himself, so I'm completely honored here.
Well, thank you so much for having me, and I appreciate it.
A lifetime of joy in just a few hours. All our brazzle dazzle years have just begun. We'll follow the sun and replay